Hello, and welcome everybody to today's The Business of Sports Executive Briefing. I'm Mark Hurry. I'm the Senior Vice President of North America's Cloud and Technology Organization here at Oracle. Look, I'm really excited about today's program. We have a great hour planned today and this morning. Look, today we're going to focus in on analytics and how, if done right, can be one of the most powerful tools in your organization. But for a minute, step back and think, how well do analytics do when your product is human? Let's have some fun and actually look through the eyes of one of the most respected executives in the NBA, Rick Welts, president and COO of a three-time NBA championship team, the Golden State Warriors. Here, a little bit about Rick. He's a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame. Rick has 45 years experience in the league and oversees all business-related operations for the Warriors, including the Chase Center and Thrive City, which is a privately financed sports and entertainment district in San Francisco's Mission Bay. Look, under Rick's direction, the organization has also established several franchise business benchmarks and won numerous awards, including being named the Sports Team of the Year. And actually, for the record, the Warriors are the first professional team to win this coveted award twice as well. So congratulations, Rick, on your success with the Warriors, your amazing career, and thank you for being here on this special day today.
Great to be with you, Mark. And I can't believe you didn't mention that those three championships were won at Oracle Arena. So
they were won at Oracle Arena, and in fact, many of them against one of the teams that are in my local city here in terms of Cleveland, Ohio. So we won't talk about that though.
Let's not. Yeah.
Great. Also joining our conversation, we have Rich Clayton. He's the Vice President of Business Analytics Product Group here at Oracle. Rich serves on the Board of Regents at Laurels College and is the founder of their Center for Business Analytics. He also actually teaches analytics at the University of Oregon and is the executive sponsor of the annual Analytics Challenge with Cal Poly and Oracle. So good to see you today, Rich.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me, Mark.
All right, so let's get into it. Rick, you've built an NBA dynasty and actually have a history of winning with analytics both on and off the court. And if we really take a step back, when you think about business transformation and the business of sports, what does it mean to what does transformation really look like within an NBA team?
I'm sure it varies from team to team. For us, it's been an amazing decade journey. When I got to the Warriors in 2011, our whole enterprise was one basketball team, and we rented an arena when we played on game nights. And we have transformed from that into really a sports and entertainment company now. So by being able to build a $1.6 billion privately financed arena in Mission Bay, we now are in a completely different business. Like we own and operate Chase Center. We are responsible for every aspect of the customer journey, which was not the case before. You might have gone to a game at Oracle Arena and thought that the person who took your ticket or served you a hot dog or showed you your seat worked for the Warriors, and actually none of those people worked for the Warriors. So the ability to impact the customer experience has exponentially increased. And at the same time, we've gone into a lot of other businesses. We of course, in operating the building now, are in the concert business as well. We have on our site 2 office buildings that we built as part of the project that are going to be occupied by Uber for the next 20 years. We have 100,000 square feet of mostly restaurant retail. So we're in just a completely different business than we were in when we started this journey a decade ago.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, we had the great opportunity, Rick, in partnering with the Warriors and the new Chase Center. And when Oracle had our most recent open world event last year, one of the early venues that started is we hosted our customers for a customer experience event and a concert in the Chase Arena. And it was a fantastic venue to host that in. So thank you.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's been closed for more days than it was open. So we're working hard to reverse that. So
yeah. Rich, let's turn to you for a second. As you think about what Rick said, the customer experience and really, building on that, what are some good examples of companies using, analytics to enhance that customer experience? And what are the top focus areas that they're using analytics for?
I was actually at that concert in Oracle Arena. Dave Matthews was fantastic. There are three basic areas that I see companies focusing on now for analytics, working capital being number one, far and above. How do we become more agile? How do we develop more scenarios? How do we create plans that are responsive? Today, TrueBlue, a small to medium-sized firm in Seattle that's in the workforce development business, focused on this topic, increased their cash flow within 1 month between 4 and 5 million by looking at DPO and DSO. That's just one example. I think the second area, as Rick kind of touched on a little bit here in terms of that customer experience, understanding the insights about the consumer is really job one now. More difficult than ever now to predict demand. A lot of firms are testing their segmentation models, rerunning new scenarios, trying to understand the behavior. Stitch Fix is a great example of a firm that really invented the personalized shopping experience, and they turned to Oracle to help them analyze the purchasing patterns and also help tune their proprietary technology and their machine learning algorithms to make predictions about what best to personalize based on how consumers are responding. The third focus area I see a lot of companies focusing around is health and safety, not just the health and safety of their customers or their suppliers, but health and safety of their employees. And if you're Kaiser, you have 200,000 healthcare professionals, and certainly keeping them safe is core to their mission. So Kaiser turned to Oracle in this topic and really, modernized their entire people analytics scenario across their entire organization. Every manager can understand how they're performing, including complex union stuff. The challenge they were trying to face and kind of the driver to it was, how do we reduce unnecessary overtime while not compromising patient outcomes? So that's one of the key areas. So working capital, consumer insights, and health and safety tend to be, I think, the big three right now that I see a lot of companies focusing
on. Yeah, thanks, Rich.
And the health and safety, I would also just say we're working with a hospitality organization to help provide better transparency to their consumers, their visitors, so they know the cleanliness of their facilities. They understand, what the company is doing to increase the sanitation efforts and so forth. So we're getting involved in things like cleanliness councils and things like that to help our hospitality customers reopen.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thanks, Rich. When you speak about scenario planning and you speak about new insights, I'll turn it back to Rick. You were early in really adopting, analytics and the view in terms of how do you shape analytics and use analytics. And, there's new algorithms that create new scenario plans, new concepts to help improve the team performance, and then maybe outside of the team performance. And what role has that played in really helping yourself and the Warriors become, the state-of-the-art franchise that you are today?
There are really two different tracks that we were on. First is the basketball team, as you said, and I think baseball really led the way in terms of using analytics to form game strategy. But I think basketball was a little further behind, but I think there are very different problems. I think of baseball kind of as a two-dimensional sport. You can isolate individual plays and know what outcomes can be and be more predictive. Basketball becomes a little more complicated. I think of basketball as 3D because there's 10 players involved in any particular play instead of just a pitcher, batter, and fielder. So it's took a little bit longer to really see where the applications were, but it comes very, very fast. And it's also developing a new mindset, right? Because coaching is an art and a science, and Those who are really good at the art sometimes aren't quite buying into the science, and vice versa, by the way.
Right.
So you're having to kind of bring everybody along at the same time, and you just have to take the approach that it's additive to the potential to win, not substitutional. Right. This is more information that can help you form judgments and predict outcomes, not substituting for the human element of what's involved in coaching. And I think the biggest breakthrough for us was probably when we installed at Oracle Arena in our practice facility this array of 150 cameras that all of a sudden could measure every basketball move and track it and start to become more predictive in what things like, when Klay Thompson is matched up against Kobe Bryant, here are some advantages that Klay may have, or here's how he performs. Maybe we should switch those matchups defensively. And, we also, with wearables, we're able to really start to track some of the health metrics that start to form, like, when's the best time to take Steph Curry out of the game in the first quarter, and what's the best time, where does he perform best when he's put back in the second quarter. And when you start to have some wins like that, then those coaches that maybe historically thought it was all up here and in their eyes to see what was happening, see that there really are some advantages of at least knowing the history of those outcomes. And yes, there's always going to be a different game situation. You always have to react to that. On the business side, it's a much quicker adoption for us. I think the NBA, I have worked in the NBA my whole life. The thing is, and all the leagues look alike, the NBA is incredibly different in some important ways. We have a wicked smart 40-person team marketing and business operations group at the NBA league office that is responsible for doing nothing but collecting business data, playing it back to us in a way where we can see what our performance is, and then sharing best practices and hopefully moving all 30 teams ahead in our business dealings. Ticket pricing was probably the first place that we could really see some substantive input from analytics. It was, 10 or 15 years ago, the concept of a season ticket was you bought a ticket to every game. The ticket was priced the same every game. And that's just the way sports worked. And today it couldn't be more different than that. We literally reprice every ticket for every game every day. And that's based, we started with pricing different games differently based on day of the week, month, opponent. We figured that out, and then we started to realize that actually can reflect demand by the ability, how people are not only buying their tickets but how they're trading their tickets in the secondary market really is the best indicator of the value of that particular product for that particular game. So and when you do all that, the consumer insights that you get, you can start to build those profiles of what any individual customer who may be going to a Dave Matthews concert and a Warriors game, and you can start to develop a profile and then proactively start to offer them things that we know are going to be right in their wheelhouse in terms of interest. So,
Rick, as you mentioned here, and as I'm picking up, you mentioned two different sides to this, right? There's the player side and the engagement of, coaching and execution on the court. And then there's the business side of it. But at the same time, you mentioned the cultural shift that's required. And in business, many times what we experience is the hardest thing to do is change management. We can get the data, right? It's the, do they believe information in the data, but it's the change management side of that. How have you really helped pivot the organization to be more accepting of the information, to be able to make business decisions, and also, from the side on the court versus off the court? Because it seems to be more easily available off the court to make those decisions and how you execute versus on the court. How have you made that change management move?
I think that is about management. So when I got to the Warriors 10 years ago, we had missed the playoffs in 16 out of 17 years. Now, mind you, this is in a league where more than half the teams make the playoffs every year. You could not probably set out to execute on a plan that was trying to not make the playoffs for 16 out of 17 years. But it was astonishing, like how okay that was. We had a losing culture in our locker room. Players expected to lose a lot of games. And in our business operation, it was really the same. It was like okay to lose. And everyone got an early vacation at the end of the regular season, got a raise, came back the next year and did it all over again, expecting the same outcome. And so, both in our locker room, where I would credit a coach by the name of Mark Jackson, who came in and really changed the attitude of our players who started to expect to win. But my first day in the office, I remember having everybody in our big conference room together saying, like, here's where we're going. Like, here's what we're going to do. Here are the new expectations. And if you kind of believe the Warriors can be that team we're describing and start to use tools like you're talking about to build our business, great. If you've been here a long time and you really can't see that happening, I totally understand. We're going to treat you great. So frankly, we had to make a lot of changes. We had to make a lot of changes in the people. And that was true in the locker room. That was true in the business operation. We really had to identify the people who were going to buy into how we were going to run this company and start to celebrate the wins. And once you start to get the wins, both business or basketball, the parade starts and everybody wants to be a part of it. So I think it's more setting the tone at the highest management level and holding people accountable for using the tools that we can make available to them to improve our business outcomes.
Yeah, and the success, continues to breed success, and then people, that buy-in continues to grow as well. And what's really exciting about what you said is it took, the bold setting of the vision and expectations, and trying new things, experimenting with those new ideas, and as you continue to grow on that, how do you see, the application of, insights, information, and the tools that you're using to, manage both the new venue that you have and also the kind of the fan experience going forward, because we're in a different environment? Well,
the fan experience at the moment is very different and hopefully it won't last that way. But in terms of every day, we have, this has been a actually exhilarating 8 months since we sent everybody home in March in terms of what we've been able to accomplish. I mean, we've taken on some huge projects because sports will never actually in some ways ever be the same. When people come back to Chase Center, they're going to be in a cashless environment. We never had a cashless environment before. We will not have any more paper tickets. We have gone to an all digital ticketing platform. And on a social media standpoint, it's one of the great advantages the NBA has over the other leagues is our social media following. Really, it's equivalent between our players and our teams of the other major leagues put together. Our players and sport resonate with a younger audience in different ways, but what we've been able to learn about how to deploy what content to what platform to achieve what results, everything is so measurable. And that if you're really committed to the measurement and to adjusting to make sure you do it better the next time. We do a ton of A/B testing when it comes to our social media. I worked for a guy for 17 years by the name of David Stern, was commissioner of the NBA for 30 years, one of the greatest commissioners ever. One of the lifelong lessons was he had quite a volatile temper. The only way that you could know you were going to provoke a very bad response was when he asked you, why are we doing it like that? And it was because that's the way we did it last year. Explosion ensues. Okay. So also committing to the intellectual curiosity, I think is absolutely mandatory, and permitting failure, right? That's part of the progress. If we're never failing, we're probably not getting anywhere.
You may not be doing enough, right? I mean, it's the challenge of new ideas, and not all of them are going to be successful, but the courage to bring these ideas to the table, to try them and fail fast in some cases is part of the experimental nature of trying new business models.
100%. Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah. Rick, when you talk about curiosity, I'm curious in terms of, the things that you're continuing to do to expand beyond. Look, you've moved out of, the your practice facility in Oakland, and you're putting it to great use with, creating another venue, which is the Warriors Basketball Academy, and you're integrating technology and analytics into developing, young athletes. Can you talk a little bit more about, how you're continuing to do this to help really build the culture beyond, the NBA and the athletes, but helping young athletes?
So appreciative that you asked that question. I start, like, my enthusiasm is going to be at another level here because, we moved from Oakland to San Francisco, which, we have almost a half a century history in Oakland. And, they're very different places, very different populations, very, very much proud of the East Bay versus San Francisco. But so that was a huge risk. And one of the things I think since this Warrior ownership group has gotten there is understanding the value of giving back in your community. And that's a phrase that's so overused, but the Warriors Community Foundation gives more to improve the educational and career outcomes of kids than any other team in sports. And it's a priority. And it's a business strategy, honestly, because the reservoir of goodwill, if you really are truly great citizens and helping people in your community, matters. But it's also the right thing to do. We have this amazing platform. So we never had our offices or practice facility at Oracle Arena. We had those in downtown Oakland, and we decided when we moved to San Francisco to repurpose those. So our business operation now is dedicated to something we call Generation Thrive that we're doing with Kaiser. And we're providing work and collaboration space for not-for-profits that we support through the Warriors Community Foundation. So they have places to meet, they have office facilities, and we've taken the basketball facility and turned it into the greatest basketball learning facility, I think, in the country. And it's all based on technology, okay, and the analytics around our sport. It's the coolest thing ever. You guys have to come try it out. We have deployed something called Basketball 360. And what it is we have 5 performance cages where you can go in and take shots, and every aspect of your shot is analyzed. The arc of your shot, its direction, left or right, everything about how you take that basketball shot and the repetition of it. And there are optimal numbers for all of these things, right? And we can train you over the course of a very short period of time on what your perfect shot is in the game of basketball. And that's like, this is science fiction stuff 5 years ago. But we're going to put more kids through that and teach them the game of basketball, boys and girls, than any other team is going to do. And it's, the combination of what we're doing philanthropically with those not-for-profits, plus teaching kids how to play the game at the highest level. I mean, I think the combination of those things is meant to signal, like, we're always going to be a huge part of the East Bay community and always have a big footprint on both sides of the Bay. So I'm more as excited about that as I am about the draft tonight. So
that's fantastic, and it's great to hear the partnership, both with great partners, the Warriors and Kaiser, both great partners from an Oracle perspective as well, and continuing to support those initiatives. I have a 13-year-old son that is in basketball and youth basketball amongst a couple of other children that I have that are all in basketball right now. So, finding out, we just explored a new space that has technology engaged to help, young athletes around skills that I was blown away when I saw that. So I can't wait on my next trip out to the Bay Area and when it's safe to travel again and be there and explore your facility as well. So thank you for your continued commitment to support, the communities that you're in, as well as, aspiring young athletes. It's a fantastic investment in their future together.
Yeah, it's really, it's probably the most rewarding part of what I get to do every day.
Yeah. So one of the key things, Rick, as you mentioned, is the NBA itself has a number of resources that are focused in on providing insights to all of the league and the teams that are out there. And when you think about the competitive nature of your business, the human side of it, right? With the players transition from one team to another team. They bring some of their own insights in terms of what was working and how that may apply. But in the competitive nature in a business that, you can argue, one team is trying to copy off of another team in certain areas. How do you really bring the strategy of some of the technology and analytics to help you, be competitive, be above the others?
Well, it's very counterintuitive the way the NBA operates. So we're a 30-team league. We do everything we can to kill each other on the basketball court. We lie about who we're going to pick in the draft. We put people off course. We try to get any competitive advantage we can. On the business side, it cannot be more different. It's the most collaborative group of competitors, I think, that exists certainly in sports. When I explain this to my friends in the NFL and Major League Baseball, they kind of scratch their head. I have access to every bit of economic data for every single team. So I know from the Los Angeles Lakers to the Utah Jazz, every dollar that they generate from ticket sales, from group sales, from sponsorships, who all their partners are, and we share all of that. And what we discovered over 40 years of this journey is that that data is so incredibly powerful. One, it's competitive, right? I have to go to an owners meeting, every so often and see where the Golden State Warriors rank from 1 to 30 in every business category. Okay, that's a motivator when you're sitting there in front of your boss. Believe me.
Absolutely.
But we kind of figured out that we're kind of defined by our lowest performing team. Like that affects how people feel about the NBA. It affects how people feel about the Warriors. So the more that tide raises all the ships, the better off we all are. And there's no problem that I'm going to face at the Warriors that 5 other teams haven't faced. And this network of best practice is extraordinary because I can tap into that and what other people's experience has when they have this particular problem. It doesn't mean I'm going to do exactly what they did, but it really informs my decision about the direction that we want to take that particular business issue. So I think it does not exist in the other sports the way it does in the NBA. The power of that data is just extraordinary to see where you're performing well, see where you really have an opportunity to figure out how to get from where you are to where you want to be. Just being true partners and sharing all that is not only motivational, but it just improves business performance.
It's great that you said that. And that's one of the roles as you think about a company like Oracle and what we attempt to try and do with many of our customers. In the commercial space, we deal in governments, we deal in the commercial sector, private sector, public sector, many different areas. And some are very open around in sharing, right, to better the overall execution, productivity, efficiency, performance of their industry. And others are highly competitive. And one of the key things we try and do is partner to share those best practices of how to better drive, performance and execution. And again, it's part of this, it's part of the culture of trying to bring success to organizations going forward. But many of those businesses today and all around the world, right, it's such a different environment in 2020. And with the pandemic and COVID and again, the spikes that we're seeing in the country that we're operating in right now is created tremendous challenge for the industry and many industries that exist, particularly your industry. When you think about what uncertainty brings, being more agile, having that approach to look at the scenario modeling and the planning and forecasting of what you do going forward, how do you step back and scenario plan? Many of the businesses that we support and our clients are thinking about scenario planning, right? How do you scenario plan, going into new markets, new content, sources of revenue? You don't know if fans are coming back, what that means. Like, how do you think about scenario planning and applicability to the audience that we have?
Well, I think there's been a lot of learning that's gone on in the last 8 months. And we have a business that is 40% as an industry dependent upon live audiences. So that's quite a blow. to your revenue picture. So we were in a unique situation. The NBA conducted the end of the season in the playoffs in what was called the bubble in Orlando. Because of the injuries that we had this year, after 5 straight years in the finals, we didn't get to go to the bubble because we were not a playoff team. Which means that since March, we've been able to focus on how this is going to end and how we're going to come out of this, which from a business perspective, it turned out, I think, to be quite an advantage. We have one freakish fact in that Joe Lacob, the primary owner of the Warriors, happens to have a graduate degree in epidemiology from UCLA, something I didn't know pre-coronavirus. And we have immersed ourselves in the science. And I think, it's gotten quite a bit of coverage lately. I think it's going to get quite a bit of coverage going forward. We aren't accepting that we have to wait for a vaccine to create a safe environment. So we've immersed ourselves in the testing protocol. We've presented to the city of San Francisco and the state of California what we think is a completely different approach to this incremental adding of audiences. We have a crazy proposal to test everybody with a rapid test within 48 hours of each basketball game and pay for it all ourselves, so that when you walk in that every person there has tested negative for the virus, every employee, every fan, obviously every player and coach. It's a completely radical approach compared to anything else. And, right now, today, it's probably not executable just based on what the trajectory of the virus is right now. But we're trying to take charge of our own fate here. Peter Guber, one of our owners, has this great thing that you have to be active in your own rescue. I love that phrase. And we're trying to be active in our own rescue. So we're planning for when this is over. At the same time, we have to scenario plan for a no fan season. We have to, a 50% fan season, a 25% fan season, and we have to see where all the levers are there that we can maximize the opportunity we do have. We also like things that are going to change forever. Again, really interesting calls yesterday with the league and our television broadcasters. This is a little inside baseball, I guess, but there are many times during the season where we have 3 independent television productions of the same game. We have a home game broadcast with 2 big trucks. We have a visiting team broadcast with 2 big trucks. We have a national broadcast with 4 or 5 big trucks all parked in Chase Center. Not going to happen going forward. There'll be one production. They'll be augmented for each one of those now. And the efficiency in doing that without sacrificing any of the technology and production quality of the broadcast, like, why did it take coronavirus for us to figure this out? Like, we could have done this, it just wasn't forced upon us. But when we were forced to figure out how could we take 50% of the cost out of producing a broadcast and make it just as good, we figured it out. And we're now going to be this will be something we'll be doing forever now, instead of, it was imposed upon us by the virus, but the ingenuity and the innovation that is now built into that is going to be a permanent improvement in our industry. So there's a lot of examples of things like that, and how we're using the moment to try to relook at everything that we're doing and find ways to do it better that can live long before we're facing a crisis like we are right now.
Yeah, that's amazing to see, like the focus in on being more productive or being more efficient, and in the day-to-day high profile focus of all the other activities that you were required to execute on. Something like this just wasn't immediate there. And now in an environment of the scenario planning, and what you have to do is, how do you control your destiny? And that's a great way of looking at how do you be more efficient, more productive, not only just for, your organization, but for the league as well, going forward. Rich, when you think about this in terms of challenges and opportunities from sticking on the theme of the pandemic and COVID-19, and really what has that really created in terms of the data analytics, area for, businesses out there, and specifically, data trends that exist?
Yeah. Well, certainly, before February, it wasn't as though there weren't serious challenges that people were facing, silos of data, aging platforms, to name a couple. The last 9 months has really been interesting because I see there being three new problems being created. Most significant is what Tom Davenport from Harvard refers to as a data deficit. And I really like that concept because I think it's so true. You know, in the last 9 months, we've created more outliers and anomalies perhaps in the last 9 years. And so it makes our algorithms and our predictions about the future much, much harder. In the retail and consumer goods industry, you know, understanding what's a essential and non-essential category changes. And the minute a municipality decides to enforce new, you know, shutdown or lockdowns, all of a sudden the things that we thought were not essential become essential. And so, so understanding consumer demand in context of a deficit is really difficult. And the interesting thing is little data becomes big data now. We're all looking for ways to create value from data. And so some of these new sources are actually proving. The second thing I think that's really happening is a new challenge is that the dependency on the public sector to make policy has now a direct corollary effect on the performance and profits of business. It's always been there, but now the sort of rate of change is much higher. And so oftentimes businesses find policy when the state or government issues a press release. That's no way to share data. So I think the challenge is how do organizations create better data partnerships? They all have partnerships with the cities and the counties and the states in which they operate, but what does the data relationship look like? And in that context, I actually was talking with a variety of our state and local government customers in Florida yesterday, and big challenge in sharing data programmatically with industry. Third challenge, I think that's been created with the pandemic is understanding the first mile of the supply chain. Oftentimes people are surprised on the dependencies their supply chain really has. And as a consequence, they either have out of stock or higher cost products. And so whether it be a manufacturing concern not understanding that, or a consumer organization trying to fulfill demand, understanding that first mile of the supply chain, I think has gotten a lot harder, and also demands deeper partnerships with the suppliers on data. So those are some things that I'm finding new this calendar as a result of the pandemic. But yeah, I actually, if it's all right, I'd like to actually circle back on one comment you made, Rick, about the art and science. Is it okay with you if I just kind of, so I teach in the liberal arts context. And so your comment really resonated with me about coaching as art science, because I do believe that we have to have scientific and soft skills in order to be successful with analytics. How do you get people to accept that? People, I think the thing that I see happening so often is that people are afraid of the science. And your comment about, not substitutional is spot on. I think it's a problem that no matter what industry, people are afraid of the science because maybe they didn't, I'm an accountant by background. Maybe they didn't grow up in this computer science world. They're afraid of what these algorithms are telling them. But, you've created a curious culture, I think, and how do you evolve that, further?
Well, I think it comes with success. We have to have success, right? And we have our industry wins and losses are very measurable, right? So we get a scorecard every day we go to work, right? We know whether we succeeded or we didn't succeed. So, it's not hard to determine over a period of time, like what's helping and what's not. And, I do think, we still have some coaches in the league that probably have some skepticism. Ours started there, but don't any longer, just because they've found the areas of strategy where they know that the work that's being done on the analytics side is going to help them make a better decision. And like I said, I think we're a little bit lucky in that we have this crazy industry where we get wins and losses every day. So
quite visible, by the way, right?
Yeah, right. In front of the world, everyone sees us fail and everyone sees us succeed, and we're all trying to succeed. So, I just think it just has to be something that is committed to at the top of the organization. If it's not, then it's not going to get implemented. And at ours, it is, both on the business side and on the basketball side. And we've been really successful. So why wouldn't you want to adopt that kind of thinking in the way you approach your work every day?
You bring up a great, transition of that topic. So both Rich, you mentioned the culture, right? And Rick, you spoke about how, the adoption going forward. I mean, if you think about, a decade ago, Rick, when you joined and everything else, and when we think about many of the customers that are out there, businesses, they like to compare themselves to, sports analogies and teams, right? And execution and performance, very visible, as you said. But how can, transition that, Rick, in terms of advice of how can business leaders really build, a deeper, I would say, that data culture in their business so that their businesses and their employees, their shareholders and others understand that this is a benefit to their organization. Any advice out there?
Just from the organizations that I've been in that have been successful, I just think it starts with dreaming big. Like as I said, we were a team that rented a building and just had a basketball team. Today we have esports teams. We're in the retail business. We fully entitled a hotel. We're going to build at Chase Center. We're launching a product for other teams right now because we saw a need that, we know how to exchange tickets in the secondary market. We don't know how to exchange suites in arenas and stadiums in the secondary market. We developed a product because that's something that we needed, and now we have a business that we're selling to other teams. So I think you have to just, I'm supposed to be the vision guy, right? I'm supposed to set a vision that inspires others to try stuff we haven't done before. And I think, for us, that is measured in winning and losing, and in our business results. But I would come back to, you also have to decide, we have to decide what we stood for as an organization, right? And because we have so much influence that's outsized to our economic size, like we wouldn't show up in the top 200 businesses in the Bay Area, yet our sphere of influence is much bigger than that. And, I think success in sports and sustained success is also built on that commitment to how you're going to represent yourself in the communities that are supporting your business, right? And we show up and we try to make sure that we're additive to the value of quality of life in the Bay Area. And it makes a difference in how people, it's a difference between how people think about you and how they feel about you. And in an emotional connection business like we have in sports, that's a factor. How people feel about us is really important and, can't be discounted. So, I just think, my job every day is to challenge people to think about things in ways they haven't thought about them before. Think about the problems we have in our industry and how we could be a way to solve those, and just reward that behavior every time we have a success, and celebrate it, and make sure that the people who are driving that are the ones that people in the organization see moving up and rewarded in new and different ways.
I love that, Rick. I mean, it's exactly what, it's exactly what I have to do in my business, right? With my organization and team in terms of engaging, our customers, and that connection. And what you just mentioned is in your business, that emotional connection that exists, and how the parallel plays in terms of our organization. Hey, Rich, let me turn to you real quick. What kind of counsel do you have for, similarly in terms of companies that really want to improve their ROI on in your specific area around analytics, and any specific advice in the current environment right now that we're operating in?
You have to look at your data plan, what to keep, what to archive, what to find, curate, control. And making assumptions about what data was valid and valuable in February is not the same as now. And so you really have to revisit your data strategy pretty holistically, looking at all the data that could be, both first party and second party generated, voice, video, text, finance, operations, all of it, social. Second thing is that now is the time to pivot analytics to the cloud, independent of where your data sits. The desktop tools that have been out there for a long time have sort of run their course. Cloud platforms really create that agility that is needed right now. Third area I would say is that everyone thinks that AI is this really magical, scary thing for data scientists, and in fact that's a bit of false or fake news. I think I recommend that companies look at practical applications of AI. How can we simplify the work of data and the work that analysts and business executives do across the organization? And the last thing I would just say is that most of our customers are working from home, and that those folks are not sitting in their cars for 45 minutes, 90 minutes to get to work. It's a wonderful opportunity to upskill the data literacy skills of your organization, to take certificate programs online, to do workshops internally, but really to take this time to champion data inside your organization. I mean, people are curious, and people want to know what its possibility, but they're afraid of how do I go into this, and be successful.
It's like raising your data IQ as you have the capacity to do so. Yeah. Rick, today is actually a really incredibly busy day for you, and we're really honored to have you here with us today. For those of you that don't know, right, the NBA draft kicks off here today, and can you tell us anything about how much the team relies on data to determine the player picks today versus what you did 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or maybe you can tell us who you're going to pick. I don't know. I'll let you share that.
Breaking news.
Yeah.
Well, it's just amazing, the effort. This is probably 35 people working 6 months to make one decision today. And, the amount, it's been a challenging year because we didn't have a college basketball season to watch players play all year, right? You don't have your traditional ways of doing things. So we've had to be, as the whole league has, had to be very innovative and create new systems for analyzing potential player performance. So, we've been flying all over the country. Instead of bringing players together, we've had to go see players everywhere. There's a lot of time spent with our doctors and analyzing each player's physical attributes. There's a lot of time now spent on the psychological part of this, where there's a lot of more personality related work that gets done. There's thousands of interviews of people who've interacted with potential players to try to understand, what we can expect from a player in terms of his career performance. And then there's your own unique situation. The Warriors' competitive situation is that we really think we have another few years run in us now. Our best players are at the peak of their career. And we have to decide, would you take a player who is going to probably be really good 3 or 4 years from now, or do you try to figure out who could impact that performance in this window of opportunity that you have to potentially win another championship? So, and then at the end of the day, you cross your fingers and hope you're right. Because I think, Mark, you said the most important thing about our industry, that is why so many people find it hard to be successful in sports, is the fact that our products are human, right? You pretty much know how every Oracle product is going to perform every day, and you can depend upon that. Human beings are different than that. So despite all that work and all that, everything I just described, your products are not going to twist an ankle today, and or suffer a career-ending injury, or do something naughty. All those things affect team performance and affect how successful you are. So you use the best information you possibly can, and then you hope you're a little bit lucky too.
It's a great, thank you. It was like almost like teed up at the end of the day here, Rick, in terms of, you think about what you just said is, from your angle and your perspective, it's absolutely critical in terms of the human side of it. And, one of the key things from an Oracle perspective is our continued innovation in driving, technology to autonomous, right? Where we actually focus in on removing human, error in terms of technology and let the technology do its work. And, it's around that business performance and that capability to allow, companies to be the most efficient they can, to put their, incredibly talented people on the most, critical areas of their business, and remove the, the potential human error side of it in terms of business as well. So it's we can see the parallels as we go from the business of sports into, the business of technology as well. Well, hey, look, it looks like we have a couple of questions, in a couple of minutes for some questions. And Rich, I'll turn it over to you if you can maybe, facilitate a couple of the questions for Rick, and then we'll wrap up here in a moment.
A couple of these have already been answered around the draft, but I thought this one was pretty good. It says, even during the bad years, the Warriors are still very successful at drawing crowds. How has the business changed from the bad years to the good years in terms of engaging fans?
No, it's exactly, when I had watched the Warriors from afar for my whole career, it was like, how is this team continuing to bring so many people into the arena and create such an exciting atmosphere with a team that just never wins? And that is one of the attributes that really has stood the test of time with the Warriors. I will tell you, those fans were not particularly well monetized in those years. And I think the one thing that has changed is the ability to monetize that in a way that was not taken advantage before. And, it's just kind of what's going on in sports. Valuations is crazy now. The Joe Lacob and Peter Guber bought the Warriors in 2010, highest price ever paid for an NBA team at $450 million. And Forbes this last January valued that team at $4.3 billion. So basically a tenfold increase in valuation. And we think it's probably a little bit low. But it's how to capture that value. It was kind of, the elements were all there, but as a business, we hadn't figured out a way to capture that. And you have to be you have to provide a great value. Like, it's not just like, oh, let's just raise ticket prices. That doesn't work unless the product and experience that you're providing justifies that. So, everything counts. How the game is presented, the excitement level, winning, all that stuff counts. And if you get lucky in some ways and it all lines up at the same time, my job was just to get the engine ready. My job was, at the point in time when people really could care about our team, could we go from 0 to 60 overnight instead of, oh, now we have an opportunity. Let's see if we can start to take advantage of it. So, never underestimate the value of luck, but I do think there was a plan that was underlying it all.
What types of data is considered in the draft? And I think you covered this already, but one of the subtext to this is, 19 to 20-year-olds may be 1 year in college and part of a season overseas. So do you give as much credit to them as someone that's played 4 years in NCAA, or how do you weight and evaluate these types of things?
Well, therein lies a lot of the art, right? Because we have athletes who've grown up in very different environments with very different competition, and you're trying to gauge how they're going to perform against NBA caliber competition. So, there's 100 different physical measurements and history of every game they've ever played that you can analyze. And again, the psychological part of it is, I think, for teams like ours who have a particular culture we want to maintain in the locker room, character really does matter to us. And when you have a leader in your locker room by the name of Steph Curry, that's a pretty easy thing to enforce because you've got one of the most amazing human beings in the world who also happens to be a really excellent basketball player who sets the cultural tone. And we have to make sure we're providing players that are going to fit into that, accept that, and then can excel in that kind of a system. And then you cross your fingers and hope we guess right.
We'll take one last question. Which Warrior player is most data-driven and takes decisions off the data?
Really interesting question. We traded him last year. I would say Andre Iguodala probably would have been at the top of that list of an unbelievable student of the game. But I think Curry's right behind. I think he studies the game from a historical perspective, and he's like a sponge in terms of information that you can provide him on his own. And he's probably the most critical of his own performance when he feels like he's fallen a little bit short and is looking for ways to correct mistakes that he's made. But we have a pretty good group who now is pretty invested in any advantage that they think they can get. And I think most of our players think through analytics that there's an edge to be gained there.
That's fantastic. Well, look, I just want to thank everybody for joining the call today. And most importantly, I want to thank Rick Welts and Rich Clayton for their time today. The Warriors have always been a great partner, and Rick, we really truly appreciate the amount of time that you spent with us this morning on this incredibly important day for your organization, and with all the activity and planning that you have going on. Hopefully, this was a good mental relief for you as you get back to work, quickly. And look, we'll be sending out a follow-up email with some additional resources to participants and those that would have liked to join but have a replay here. And as always, for the participants out there, reach out to your Oracle sales representative at the leadership if you have any questions about how we can help your business in the business of sports. Thanks again, Rick. Good luck today. And good luck on having a fantastic season going forward.
Thanks. And I can't get off without saying thanks to Oracle. I mean, the reason I'm here is because of how important Oracle's been and what we built at the Warriors. So thanks right back at you.
Great. Take care, everyone. Be safe.